$52 billion. That is the exact valuation of the global herbicide market today. A massive, hyper-coordinated financial engine designed to do precisely one thing: eradicate specific plants from the face of the earth. We are conditioned to view these plants as nuisances. We call them weeds. We wage a perpetual, toxic, and expensive war against them in our driveways, our agricultural fields, and our pristine suburban lawns. But the true definition of a weed is not biological. It is political. You have been sold a multi-billion-dollar lie. The green invaders you spray with poison every spring are not botanical garbage. They are ancient, life-saving miracles that were deliberately outlawed, marginalized, and erased from public memory. They were banned by empires to break native populations. They were systematically redefined by modern chemical cartels to ensure you keep paying for artificial, patented replacements. This is the history of the world, written in the suppressed foliage hiding at the edge of your property. The corporate monopolies built an empire on artificial scarcity. Nature answered with relentless, unkillable abundance. Number 1. The Aztec Godseed. In the year 1519, Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés marched into the heart of the Aztec Empire. He did not just find a civilization rich in gold, he found a population possessing superhuman endurance, fueled by a crop that defied the limits of agriculture. This plant was amaranth. For the Aztecs, it was a sacred staple, accounting for up to 80% of their daily caloric intake. They mixed the seeds with honey, forming statues of their deities, consuming the plant in rituals that bound their society together. The biological reality of amaranth is staggering. It is a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids, an extreme rarity in the plant kingdom. It is packed with lysine, an amino acid entirely missing from the European staples of wheat and corn. Furthermore, amaranth utilizes an ultra-efficient method of carbon fixation known as C4 photosynthesis. This allows it to thrive in brutal heat and severe drought, producing up to 3,000 pounds of seed per acre. It was, by all scientific metrics, a perfect food source. Cortés recognized immediately that to conquer the people, he had to conquer their food system. In an act of calculated biological warfare, the Spanish crown criminalized amaranth. The cultivation of the plant was banned on pain of death. Aztec farmers caught growing it had their hands severed. Fields were burned to ash. The Spanish replaced this miraculous, drought-proof superfood with frail, imported European wheat, subjugating the population by tethering them to an inferior, labor-intensive food supply. But amaranth did not die. It merely retreated to the margins. Today, the suppression of amaranth continues, not by sovereign empires, but by modern agricultural cartels. Agrochemical giants like Bayer and Monsanto have spent billions developing genetically modified crops designed to withstand lethal doses of the herbicide glyphosate. But nature adapts. In the sprawling synthetic monocultures of the American Midwest, amaranth returned. Known today by the derogatory name pigweed, it evolved an immunity to glyphosate. It grows 3 inches a day, towering over engineered soy and corn, snapping the blades of industrial harvesters. The chemical industry spends billions annually trying to destroy it, labeling it an invasive threat. But it is not a threat to humanity. It is only a threat to a fragile, patented business model. The plant came back. Number 2. The brewer's secret. Walk to the shaded, damp edges of your yard, and you will likely find a low creeping vine with scalloped leaves and tiny purple flowers. The turfgrass industry has trained you to call this Creeping Charlie, a stubborn blight that must be eradicated with broadleaf chemical weed killers. But for over a millennium, this plant was known as alehoof, or ground ivy, and before the 16th century, it was one of the most economically vital plants in Europe. Before the widespread use of hops, all beer was brewed using a botanical mixture called gruit. Ground ivy was the absolute cornerstone of this process. It naturally cleared the beer, preserved it, and imparted a sharp, stabilizing bitterness. Biologically, ground ivy is an absolute powerhouse. It is loaded with vitamin C, essential oils, and rosmarinic acid. Medieval herbalists relied on it not just for brewing, but to treat lung conditions, heavy metal toxicity, and chronic inflammation. It was a free, abundant medicine and preserving agent that grew in every forest and meadow. The suppression of ground ivy began in the year 1516. The Bavarian beer purity law, known as the Reinheitsgebot, was enacted, dictating that beer could only be made with water, barley, and hops. Why hops? The science was never the point. The shift was entirely political and economic. The Catholic Church and local herbalists held localized monopolies on Groot mixtures, which were untaxable because the ingredients grew freely in the wild. Rulers and Protestant lawmakers pushed for the mandated use of hops, because hop farms could be centralized, monitored, and heavily taxed by the state. Ground ivy was pushed out of the brewing industry by royal decree. Stripped of its economic value, ground ivy was slowly reclassified. The medical establishment dismissed it, and the rising landscaping industry of the 20th century branded it a suffocating weed. Homeowners now spend hundreds of dollars a year pouring synthetic poisons onto their lawns to kill a plant that was once revered as the vital heartbeat of European brewing and medicine. They buy mass-produced, chemically stabilized beer and expensive anti-inflammatory pills, utterly blind to the ancient apothecary growing wild around their foundations. Number 3. The French royalties cure-all. Consider the supreme irony of the modern American lawn. Every spring, millions of homeowners engage in a bitter, costly battle against a plant characterized by its jagged leaves and brilliant yellow flower, the dandelion. We have been socially engineered to view a yard speckled with dandelions as a sign of moral failing, poverty, and neglect. But history tells a radically different story. In the year 1620, when the Mayflower crossed the Atlantic, the Pilgrims did not bring bags of turf grass. They brought dandelions. It was meticulously cultivated as an absolute necessity for survival. For centuries prior, European royalty specifically bred dandelions in vast, protected gardens. The Chinese utilized the plant in traditional medicine for thousands of years. Biologically, the dandelion is an absolute marvel of nutrition. A single cup of raw dandelion greens contains over 100% of your daily requirement of vitamin A, exponentially more than spinach. It is packed with calcium, potassium, iron, and more vitamin C than crushed tomatoes. Furthermore, its biological function in nature is to heal damaged earth. Its deep, powerful taproot plunges into compacted, dead soil, drawing calcium and vital minerals up to the surface, restoring the topsoil. It is nature's paramedic. So how did the greatest survival plant in human history become public enemy number 1? The answer lies in the aftermath of the Second World War. In 1945, massive chemical conglomerates like Dow Chemical and Monsanto faced a severe peacetime crisis. They had vast, overflowing stockpiles of synthetic chemical defoliants, chemicals that would later be weaponized as Agent Orange, and they desperately needed a new market. Simultaneously, developers like Abraham Levitt were creating the modern suburb. The chemical lobby and the real estate industry collaborated to invent a new status symbol, the pristine, uniform, emerald green lawn. Through aggressive, psychological advertising campaigns in the 1950s, they convinced the American public that a monoculture of Kentucky bluegrass was the ultimate symbol of success. Because broadleaf herbicides like 2,4-D could kill dandelions but not grass, the dandelion was selected as the perfect scapegoat. It was maliciously redefined from a prized botanical to an intolerable blight. Today, Americans dump roughly 80 million pounds of toxic pesticides onto their lawns every year, poisoning their local water tables, just to eradicate a free, nutrient-dense superfood, all because a chemical company needed to liquidate its wartime inventory. Number 4. The battlefield stitch. If you look at the packed dirt of your driveway or the cracks in a city sidewalk, you will inevitably see a low-lying rosette of thick, ribbed leaves. This is Broadleaf Plantain. Native American peoples observed that this plant seemed to mysteriously spring up wherever European colonizers traveled, earning it the name white man's footstep. But it was not an invasive parasite. It was a calculated traveler. Broadleaf plantain was carried by Roman legions across Europe and utilized by the armies of Alexander the Great. It was heavily guarded and planted around military encampments for one specific, vital reason. It is one of the most powerful natural wound healers on the planet. The biological secret of the plantain leaf lies in a potent chemical compound it naturally produces, called allantoin. Allantoin acts as a phenomenal cell proliferator. When the leaves are crushed and applied to an open wound, the allantoin physically accelerates the regeneration of damaged tissue. It possesses aggressive antibacterial properties, draws out deep infections, and halts bleeding almost instantaneously. For thousands of years, before the existence of modern emergency rooms, this plant was the difference between life and death on the battlefield. Its erasure from public consciousness was neither accidental nor natural. In the early 20th century, the medical landscape underwent a hostile corporate takeover. In 1910, the heavily funded Flexner Report fundamentally altered medical education in the United States, systematically marginalizing thousands of years of botanical and holistic medicine. The goal was to pivot the medical industry entirely toward petrochemical-based, patentable pharmaceuticals. You cannot patent a weed that grows aggressively in the cracks of a concrete sidewalk. You cannot monopolize a leaf that heals wounds for free. Therefore, plantain was quietly removed from the United States pharmacopoeia. It was scrubbed from mainstream medical textbooks. The public was conditioned to rely exclusively on expensive, synthetic, petroleum-derived first aid ointments wrapped in plastic tubes. The ancient, bleeding-stopping miracle relied upon by the greatest empires in history was demoted to the status of pavement trash. Today, millions walk over it every single day, completely unaware that a world-class pharmacy is living beneath the soles of their shoes. Number 5. The Immortal Succulent. Deep in the heat of midsummer, when the grass dies and the soil cracks, a strange, fleshy plant with thick red stems and teardrop leaves begins to sprawl across barren garden beds. This is Purslane. Modern agricultural manuals advise farmers to brutally till it under or douse it with herbicides. It is treated as an invasive weed that suffocates commercial crops. Yet, Mahatma Gandhi considered purslane to be one of the most important foods in his diet. Henry David Thoreau wrote of eating it wildly in the woods of Walden. Ancient Persian medical texts documented its cooling properties, and the Roman scholar Pliny the Elder advised wearing it as an amulet to ward off bodily harm. The biological reality of purslane exposes one of the greatest nutritional tragedies of the modern era. Purslane contains the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids of any leafy green plant on Earth. It holds up to 4,000 milligrams of omega-3s per serving, alongside massive doses of vitamin E, melatonin, and magnesium. Furthermore, it possesses an evolutionary superpower. When subjected to extreme drought, purslane shifts its internal biology, switching from standard photosynthesis to crassulation acid metabolism, or CAM. This allows it to hold its breath during the scorching day and breathe only at night, retaining its moisture and nutrients when every other plant withers and dies. It can be ripped from the soil, thrown onto concrete, and it will survive for weeks, utilizing its own fleshy leaves to keep its seeds alive. The modern suppression of purslane is driven by the artificial demands of the centralized agricultural monopoly. The 20th century produce industry was built on a foundation of logistics, not nutrition. Corporate farms demanded crops that were uniform, shelf-stable, and easily transportable across thousands of miles. They chose water-heavy, nutrient-dead crops like iceberg lettuce, which require massive infusions of patented synthetic fertilizers and constant irrigation. Purslane is too wild, too resilient, and entirely uncommodifiable. It requires no fertilizer, no watering, and no chemical protection. Because the industrial food system could not package and control it, they waged a smear campaign against it. Today, consumers walk into pharmacies and spend billions of dollars on expensive, rancid fish oil capsules encased in plastic, desperately trying to supplement the exact omega-3 fatty acids that are missing from their diets. Meanwhile, outside in their garden, bathed in the summer sun, purslane offers those exact same nutrients for free, thriving in the dust, begging to be eaten. We pave over the cure to buy the synthetic replacement. This is the ultimate bitter irony of the modern age. We inhabit a world where artificial scarcity has been manufactured to extort us. We are surrounded by biological miracles, ancient superplants that survived the wrath of conquistadors, the edicts of kings, and the relentless poisoning of the chemical cartels. They hide in plain sight, waiting for us to remember what we have been forced to forget. The empires of industry have tried to blind you to the abundance of the natural world, convincing you that survival must be purchased at a premium. But the resistance is already growing in your backyard. You only have to open your eyes, bypass the lies, and harvest the truth.